Hello and welcome to Horseplayer Happy Hour, the premiere of Season 3 of Horseplayer Happy Hour. I'm your host, Peter Thomas Fornatale. So happy to be back with you doing this show for our friends at the Breeders' Cup and the charities that we're working with as well, the Thoroughbred Aftercare Alliance and the Thoroughbred Retirement Foundation. Going to hear a lot about all of those entities throughout the course of the show's first show of many this season. We're going to go right through the Breeders' Cup and riding shotgun with me, sometimes even hosting. Maybe we'll see how that works out. But here, as much as he can be, we have a guy you know from previous seasons, from his own success as a contest player, the great work he does on NBC, and his most very popular and must listen to appointment viewing or podcasting, whatever you want to call it, that is eponymous. He is TV's Matt Bernier. Matt, what's going on?
Pete, I'm happy to be back. I think we can call this the second season, although it's the third year we've done these happy hours. The first year was out of necessity, so we weren't losing our minds in the midst of everything that was going on. Last year, we put a little bit of form to it, tightened it up, offered some prizes. This year, much of the same, but I think it's going to be in a little bit more of a succinct, a tighter version of it. I think we're going to have some good consistency. Again, you talked about sort of the idea of appointment viewing. This is going to be appointment viewing and appointment playing every week on Thursdays.
That's definitely the idea. And part of that is getting this consistency of schedule. And, we'll see. If we have to change it and it's going to make it better or fans demand the schedule be changed in some way, we'll look into it. We're not going to be overly stubborn about it. But the idea is that the contest will be starting in the hour of 3 o'clock. So, today's started at 3:38 on Thursday. They're all going to be on Thursday. That's another big change. We bipped and bopped back and forth between Thursday and Friday last year. And the broadcasts are going to be 4 to 5. We're going to keep it an hour. We thought, maybe for some 4 to 5 is a little early of a happy hour, but we thought, we know a lot of people like to watch at work. We figured we would give you something at the end of the day. And yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. We're going to be putting even more of an emphasis than in the past on previewing and reviewing Breeders' Cup win and you're in races. In fact, Candice Hare will be here a little bit later in the happy hour to give us her thoughts on the Yasuda Kinen key Breeders' Cup mile win and you're in race happening in Japan Saturday night into Sunday morning. We'll look back at the Shoemaker Mile when we get a chance, and we're going to talk about these races happening now. We got 5 more races in the course of this contest, starting with race number 3 at Belmont. Belmont with the late post time on a Thursday. One of these Thursdays, actually, I know exactly which one it is. I was going to say one of these Thursdays, I'll broadcast live from Belmont. Well, how about next Thursday when they've got that good card? I'll find some quiet spot and join you from out that way. Should be a lot of fun, and I'm really looking forward to this. I suppose we should, obviously this week's contest is already gone, so we're not hustling entries, but we should explain the mechanics of this pretty quickly, Matt. What is the Horseplayer Happy Hour Tour?
Each week, you're going to have a $20 buy-in to get involved in a weekly contest, but also a full season event where you're going to accumulate points should you finish inside the top 10 at the end of the regular season. The folks who have the most points will qualify for the postseason, and from there, we'll whittle it down week by week until we eventually get to a final table. The winner at that final table will win a $10,000 Breeders' Cup betting challenge seat, and also the person at the top of the leaderboard from a point standing standpoint at the end of the regular season will also win a $10,000 BCBC seat. So you've got 2 $10,000 Breeders' Cup betting challenge entries up for grabs. I'm not just saying it because we are friends with the folks at the Breeders' Cup. I've played in basically all the tournaments that there are to play in. The BCBC is the best one, bar none. They're really, and I don't mean that as a slight to, the National Horseplayers Championship or anything that our friends at Santa Anita have done, but the BCBC is the holy grail. That's the one that you want to be getting involved in, and this is a great opportunity for a few different reasons. A, low buy-in. $20 you can get yourself in. You finish inside the exacta, you're going to move on or qualify anyway for the postseason. Also, I think there are a lot of people that maybe the tournament style is a little bit intimidating. This is a nice low entry point. A barrier of entry, shall we say, is on the lower side. You get involved. If it doesn't work for you this week, no problem. You wheel right back next week and you keep coming. And also, I think it's just a nice opportunity to get some interaction. We always want to hear from the folks that are playing. So we talk about, we're going to do the Thursday pieces, but if you want more races, less races, whatever it may be, we're all ears. We want to cater it to the horse player. And I think the big thing, my big takeaway before I give it back to you, this is something that we talk about supporting these player-friendly events and wagers and things like that. This is just that. This is something that is very friendly for the horse player from a takeout standpoint. And again, I've sort of somehow missed the point that we're helping the horses. When they're done on the track, they need somewhere to go. And TAA and TRF, they're sort of the beneficiaries of us playing in this thing week in and week out. So all the reason to get involved. It's only $20. Come have some fun, maybe have a beverage, and hopefully pick some winners.
Speaking of beverages, I think maybe during one of these races,
I'll run upstairs.
Right? Yeah, I forgot to load up as far as that went. Oh, there you go. The happiest sound. The happiest sound from Matt. We'll get mine going in a minute. But to me, to underline a couple of the key points, 3 separate ways to win your $10,000 Breeders' Cup Betting Challenge seat. The traditional way, you might say, you do well in this feeder, you play in Saturday's qualifier. That's great, and especially knowing that the house cut that you normally pay to be in a qualifier, that's going to the great work that TAA and TRF do, helping horses after their racing days are done, a cause that is near and dear to both of us. But then the 2 ways through the tour, either by being the overall tour winner, we'll get into the particulars in a video somewhere or in another place about how you're going to accrue points all year long via the tour, or any week you finish in the top 2, you automatically get into our playoffs. So there's so many different ways to go about this, and we tried to set it up where you really have reason to play every week, even if you just come in late and play all the 4s. Hat tip my man Kevin Kilroy for that one. But it's definitely something that's easy and fun to do, and we encourage folks to do it. And you know what else is fun is we like to get comments from folks during these shows. If you want to drop those in, Michael Bryant welcoming Matt back to the network and offering congratulations. And here, speaking of the Breeders' Cup Betting Challenge, last year's winner, we hear from him. Great to see us doing this again. Terrific way to support the cause. And yeah, of course, he agrees about the BCBC being the best. Not going to get an argument from him. We're headed postward for Belmont's 3rd race. Let's talk about this one real quick. Did you have a chance to handicap this sucker?
Yeah, I did, and it's not a super strong opinion. There are a couple of races of our broadcast window that I like a little bit more from a gambling standpoint. I went with no salt in here, the 4. I just thought maybe getting back to the grass, I think the turn back is going to be beneficial. And if this one can bring those figs that we've seen on the dirt against slightly inferior to this race here, I think no salt makes some sense in here for Joe Brocklebank and Dylan Davis.
I definitely get it. It was one of the ones I looked at. I ended up landing on Big Everest, not giving anything away at 2-1, but just looking through this pedigree, it was one I could really see moving up with cut in the ground in terms of my betting action. This race, I'm going to keep with Big Everest and see if we can get something done. Maybe we'll mess around with a little exacta with our runners as well. We encourage you to chat along with us. Give us your picks in the comments and or play along through the ADW of your choice. Looking to have a little bit of fun on a Thursday afternoon. Another thing I'm looking to do a little bit differently, and I'd like to hear from players if you like this or not. I assume there's no downside to it. Trying to cleave a little bit more closely with the regular schedule to the races that are already going to be part of the qualifiers on Horseplayers.com. That's going to mean presumably a little bit less work for people who are the regulars on the site, because you can just basically copy over your picks. In some instances like today, and this is one I'd really like to hear people's opinions on, if you like that I did this or not, made the decision to add 1 race because I just thought 8 races was better than 7, and Woodbine's 7th fit so perfectly into our time window. I probably should have asked you, Matt, if you liked that decision or not, but did you think that made sense to try to get it to 8 races where we can?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think we've heard from most people that more races is better, and I frankly tend to agree. You know, it's all well and good if you get a 6-race contest. The problem is you get 1 or 2 big prices, and all of a sudden you're kind of out of luck. I like the idea of being able to spread it out a little bit as we're off at Belmont.
All right, and we see Big Everest there going to the lead, but absolutely has company from the 3 subsidized. We'll see. Looks like still has a handful on Big Everest, so. For my sake, we'll hope that there's something left here as we get into the turn. What do you see from your no salt at this point, Matt?
Well, I mean, I think the fractions are honest enough to this point. 23-1. We'll see what we get for a half flashing up here. But you figured a little bit on the turn back. Perhaps trying to rally from off of it a little bit. I got a question for you from a gambling standpoint. You see, Chad right now is in 3rd, the favorite at 8-5. With the way he's going, I mean, how do you use Chad Brown to your advantage at this point, knowing that from a win standpoint, almost all of them are over bet, although they're winning for the most part. Is it something that you key them in multi-race wagers? How do you go about using it?
It depends on what I think of the horse on paper. I'm definitely going to be more inclined. If, let's say, I had a clever opinion in this race, I probably would have played a 7-2 if the two Big Everest had been any price. With thinking Big Everest was going to be among those at the top of the market, I just said, you know what? I didn't like this horse, the Chad horse in here at the price he was likely to be. So I said, you know what? I'm just going to let him. I'm going to let him beat me, and if he beats me, that's okay. So it really depends on how it lines up with my other opinions within the race or in the sequence, how I'm looking to handle it. I don't have typically a one-size-fits-all. I just can't be like, oh, I'm going to throw everyone in on every ticket. That feels too defeatist to me. If you can't beat them, join them rarely works in horse playing. But of course, I'm going to have to give them an extra look when he's on a streak like this. And if it happens to be one that I like and I'm worried about the win price being a little bit depressed, then I'm much more likely to look to keying in a multi-race bet or on top in a bet like the Exacta or Trifecta. Does that line up with your approach to these things?
Yeah, I mean, I'm having a hard time as more and more time goes by. I was reading a few different little papers that are out there, and the idea that as more and more time goes by in modern days anyway, favorites are stronger and stronger. They're not getting more and more vulnerable. There's more signal there than noise for the most part. And I'm trying to find the best way to optimize using that knowledge or using that information, where sometimes I'm not suggesting you just sit there and bow down and say, okay, well, at 8-5, you're just simply better than everyone else. But I'm just trying to find the best way to try to maximize potential while acknowledging that these days it seems more and more likely that they're not going to completely flop or be no hopers. I think more often than not, they're going to run. And I guess that's probably no different than in history of horse racing, but it does feel like, more modern times, some of these favorites that are bet from these big barns, typically for a reason.
It is different, I think, than historically, because the game has just changed so much, where you have fewer trainers having more of the good horses, right? So that gives them the ability to separate their good horses and to have like a horse, or in Chad Brown's case, many times he's running more than one in a race, but to have these races like surrounded in a way where other trainers in the past didn't have all the same luxuries. And I want to see if I can do this on the fly, try to run some numbers, because you're absolutely right. There's no way these horses aren't catching more money than they're like quote unquote supposed to. And in that sense, they're overbet. But I think if you run the numbers, I'm pretty sure we'll be surprised at how not badly just betting, say, Chad Brown favorites would look in a stat study. I'm trying to run it quickly here, and then maybe I can share a screenshot. What do you think we should do? Like last month at Belmont with favorites, something like that?
Well, I mean, just the raw number for Chad at Belmont over the past month, the meet opened, the Friday of Derby week. He's clipping at 44%. So I think that's a fair, let's start at that and see where you go.
That's just so amazing. And there is a way here on Formulator. Yeah, you can just put in the favorites and see what comes up. And I think there's a way I can share this if it's interesting. Dude, this is nuts. I got to figure out how to share this. Let's see if I can. Let's see if I'm clever enough. See if I can channel my inner producer Craig and do a quick little share screen of the formulator screen that I have up. I want to make sure I share the right one. No, that's not the right one. I'm sorry. I should have rehearsed this. But I think I can just now pop it right up there. Might look a little weird. It doesn't look probably big enough to be of much use.
No, it's good. It's good.
Yeah. You can see that all right. So so this is just, I think I defaulted to the last couple months at Belmont.
2 months.
So it's just ridiculous. Obviously completely unsustainable. Nobody wins at 70%. But if you bet, let's just say somebody had the idea 2 months ago to do some sort of system bet on Chad Brown with his favorites at Belmont, you'd be making a lot of money. You'd be paying better than any bank. Will it go forward? Probably. No, obviously it can't go forward. It's too good to be true. But in a way, if somebody wanted to say, well, over the last 2 months, Pete, they haven't been overbet because I've been making this flat bet profit on them, it would be hard for me to argue. Those stats come from a DRF formulator, of course, if you're interested in doing stat digging. There's a lot of great places you can dig up statistical info. Race Lens, another one we quote a lot on the shows. The newly rebranded Race Lens is a great database of statistics and stuff. But Formulator also very much of a go-to. I think they have advantages and disadvantages, and I encourage people to check that out. Should we look at a leaderboard?
Might as well. It was as good a time as any. We just had a big bomb down at Gulfstream in the race prior, so I think this is a good time to see where everything stands for week 1.
I like it. We'll see. But producer Craig going to be popping that up any second, and we'll run through. The very nice to see a friend at the top of the list. My man Ernie Hay Jr., longtime listener and communicator, right at the top of the list. 78.50. That's off to an awfully good start through 4 races. Kevin Walsh, Anthony Morose, double-fisted Greg Kingman, another guy I've had the pleasure of hanging out with at racetracks around the country. Patrick Lewis, Shay Carroll, Pete Dressens. Always good to see Pete up there as well. Longtime listener. Chris Olson, who I've met out at NHC's, triple-handed. Interesting to see his strategy there, where he's basically the same up to this point, and now is diverging in his picks, which you can see right there on the Horseplayers site. That gives him a very, very strong hand. Rocky Hardy, a name I've seen on many leaderboards. Andrew Wright, who last I saw was working for TVG and doing very well on our leaderboard. Jonathan Cummings, Michael Domable up there. Good to see him. He did extremely well on our tour last year, up there for many, many events. James Miller from the In the Money team. He pronounces it Millar, the U.S. way. There's so many English people who have that name and they say Miller, so I get confused sometimes. Apologies, James. I know your name. I talk to you all the time. Special guest on the show. Say hi. We're live streaming. Say hi to the world.
Look at this. Tremendous.
I can chat with you if you wait to during the next race, but I'm seriously live streaming right now, so I can't.
Are you going to?
Oh no, let Loli take you to Taekwondo, and then I'm going to pick you up from Taekwondo. How's that? All right. Well, we have a little argument about the Taekwondo. Normally I take her, but this is going to have how it is. Perrin, it's Horseplayer Happy Hour. Remember when you got to high five Mr. Met? Wasn't that awesome? All right, good. We got her back. Back to the leaderboard here. John Gasper, who's come to see us at our live at the Brentwood shows at Saratoga. Those are coming back, and we're going to live stream them this year on Sundays. That's going to be a lot of fun. Hopefully, we'll get John Gasper back out there. James Lasowski and Turner West. That'll be the names that we say for this time. Still all to play for with 4 races left, but some pretty good scores on that leaderboard, Matt.
Yeah, especially, when you can catch a big number in a pick and pray, I think it's just one of those things that, depending on how your philosophy sort of lines up with a day, maybe you're looking at it thinking it might be on the chalkier side. And if you miss out on one of the prices early on, it's going to be uphill, sledding from then on. Or, you try to do things strategically. And I think that's something I've tried to do in the past. Sometimes it's worked, sometimes it hasn't, where toward the end of an event, I try to at least find one race where I take a shot with a horse that I think is going to be close to a capper, maybe not a full-blown, 20-to-1 type, but maybe a 15-to-1 kind of number where it can also work in one of 2 ways. If I'm in a position where I'm toward the top, it can be a bit of a blocker and try to prevent somebody from trying to run me down. Or if I'm behind, it's an opportunity anyway to be drawing live in one of those last couple of races, and hopefully you can connect and get back involved. For this week, again, I'll be curious to see how these final 4 races play out, but there's still quite a ways to go. And, it's not like the number right now is unattainable. We're only in the 40s. You're still very much alive. And a race like this at Gulfstream coming up, you've got 2 horses taking, well, I shouldn't say you got 2 horses taking most of the money, but realistically, you've got the entire field between 2-to-1 and 13-to-1, and only one of them is a double-digit price. So, I think you've got some chances anyway. Put it that way.
I like the sound of it. Yeah, we might as well talk about this race. They're out on the track. Gulfstream running a little bit late. I say that out loud for myself as much as anything else because it may affect when we try to get our visit with Candice in here, which we'll still have plenty of time for. But I did want to. It is the times are a little bit different than what I had guessed they were going to be today. I'm not sure if I got the post times wrong or if Gulfstream were up to those
Gulf's a bit behind
tricks. They are a bit behind.
Gulf's a bit behind.
Yeah, Craig, I'd put Gulfstream up rather than Woodbine. They're going to be pretty similar, but I think Gulfstream's going to go first. Unfortunately, Craig, you're going to have to be on your toes here because this being horse racing, it could easily be Woodbine. But let's talk about both these races, starting with Gulfstream. What did you like in here?
Actually, I'll tell you both because I like the 5 in both races, and I know they're short prices both spots. But Gulfstream 5th, Valiant Avenger. I thought the run 2 starts back on the grass. Thought the horse ran too well to lose. Close to a hot pace, put ahead in front, got run down at the very end. Was too clear. The horse that defeated him came back and won a stakes race on synthetic with a 76 next out. I just think Valiant Avenger makes all the sense in the world. Not surprised by the price. I was hopeful for 5-2, 2-1. I may be okay with. And I'll just rattle off the Woodbine number right now, too, because we've got 3 minutes to that race. The 5 in there as well, Lady Maeve. I thought the first start for Kevin Attard's barn was really good, visually very impressive, rolled up on the far turn, drew off for fun. Best stride was at the end of the run. That was the first time with blinkers. I think that maybe that was the thing that unlocked this one's potential. And it's worth noting you had the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th place finishers all come back and improve their buyer in their next start. So I think there's a lot to like about Lady Maeve. It's 55 for me in these 2 races.
I love that improvement, what I would call an improvement on the old school key race method, where you don't just look at where the horses finished in their next race. And it's not just about who won, it's about what happened to the figures. And it's sort of a double-pronged weapon because, of course, it points out races that have good form and horses that are moving forward or holding their form from the previous run. But it can also find you races where maybe that published figure, for one reason or another, is low. So I love that angle. I went in different ways in both races. At Gulfstream, if I had just been making like picks in the paper or whatever, how old am I at this point? I'll pick on the show. I would have gone with number 10, Starship Abraham, probably, just because I think Starship Abraham has a really good chance to get the best of it based on the way I see this race playing out, the right combination of speed and stamina. For contest purposes, I'm a little bit interested in the 4 Euphoria Star. Washed off last time, has that solid run 2 back. Yes, the run 2 back was earned with a good setup, but I think this is a horse against this group I could see making an impact. And at 8-1, now 9-1 versus the 5-2 of the horse, the other horse that I liked, or the 2-1 of your choice. I don't hate the idea of trying to mix in Euphoria Star with those other runners and trying to make something happen here in the 7th race at Gulfstream. And at Woodbine, I respected your horse. I went with the 4, Lois Len. I thought had a chance to really pull a great trip from just off the pace for a very hot trainer jockey combo. I thought this was a much easier group than the last race, and the horse was 3-2 in there. So I thought that was pretty interesting. There you go.
I like it. I'm curious. So with the 10 at Gulfstream, because I was torn between the 5 and the 10. When I went back and watched the tape, I was much more taken by the 5. With the 10, I know I've gone on record saying it. I don't care about a horse going from a maiden to taking on winners for the first time. If the horse fits, the horse fits. It's sort of the old Andy Beyer sort of, talking about class before they had figs. Well, and then all of a sudden, if I've got a maiden that earned a 90 going up against, N1X types that typically earn 80s, the 90 is just better. What is that the big piece for you with Starship Abraham, knowing that this one is arguably the fastest horse in the race already?
It's definitely part of it. I mean, when you and the more you're dealing with like lower levels and restricted races, the less I worry about that stuff. When first against winners, I think first against winners is something that I consider a caution when the crowd is just betting the figure and you look back at that maiden race where the horse earned the 90. You know what? They're going to go off at exactly the same time. You're right, though, Craig. Let's start with Woodbine, who are loaded. You were right in the first place. I should have never tried to correct you. But you look at the horse coming out of the 90 maiden race, and 6 have run back, and none have won, and the horse had a really good trip and wasn't pressured, and was able to run perfectly efficiently, and then is going to come back as the favorite, right? Then I start to get worried about first time against winners. I don't get worried about first time against winners when a horse is any kind of price, and I don't get worried about first time against winners in restricted lower level claimers. Often it's a positive. They've failed less, or they've turned the corner. in the N2L type races. So, it all factors in as we break at Woodbine. We got some great comments we'll get to when we get a minute, which should be fairly soon. You've gone right to the lead, and I'm not too far off. It looks like we're both getting a fair shake in this one, but I mean, I think I'd rather be you as easily as you appear to be going here.
Yeah, I mean, well, to be fair, again, your position's not bad, and I don't mind what your jockey's doing right now, going up and applying a little bit of pressure.
I actually really like that. I was worried. I was worried we were grabbing and just going to let you completely dictate terms. Now they're running it a bit more like a match race, which I prefer.
I was going to say, this feels a little bit like a 2-speed number. Maybe somebody's going to make a run from the back. The one's moving pretty sweetly still at this point, but I wouldn't trade places with either of us at this point right now.
No, I think I'm pretty confident saying one of us is going to have the winner.
I mean, the one is loaded.
Yeah.
The one just needs somewhere to go.
Yeah, it's not going to be easy, I think, to work it out from there. But if much the best, you're under a lot of pressure. I'm starting to get under pressure. I think I like me better than you if I can now hold off this one.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Let's see. Yeah, I think I should be all right. Just got to see it out. Just got to find a little more.
Yeah, you should be home, right? Yeah. Good call.
4-1 and the 5 doesn't even end up third. We could actually go right to the video at Gulfstream. Is that, when you were thinking about that, is that just I wasn't good enough, or do you second guess and wish you'd gone faster, or do you have any comments about the ride, or was it just a beating on the square situation?
No, I mean, so that was the first time in this one's career that she's ended up on the lead. Maybe she doesn't appreciate being the one cutting it out. We've seen in the past some horses would rather have a target to run at. That to me feels like you're kind of making excuses. I didn't think they were going all that fast. And again, for your horse to basically be right there alongside the entire way and finish, I would say rather comfortably get the job done. I can't sit here and blame the setup of the race for the reason that the filly didn't kick. Maybe it was first time against winners and she just couldn't quite hack it against a tougher group. But no, I mean, frankly, I didn't think it was a very good performance from her. I thought she should have done much better than she did.
The one had that little bit of a trip and maybe was a little compromised flow-wise, maybe coming back in a race with more pace. I might make a halfway decent note about that one. Meanwhile, this is very slow at Gulfstream here as we see that 50-78 half. It's pretty much the race I was wanting from Starship Abraham, but it doesn't look like it's going to work out here as Skipperini comes to the party with a chance to upset the apple cart if the 7 gets tired. Though, as I say that, Starship Abraham may be finding a little bit. And here's this Euphoria Star trying to come up the wood. I mean, I think it's got to have been too slow for the 4 to fully get involved. It looks like that horse Skipperini flattened out. They're trying to time this perfectly on Starship Abraham, but let's see if Star Shopping has other ideas. 3 noses on the wire.
I think you got there.
I might have just got it.
I need to know how the 5 was second last. Now, if I had known, and again, I missed the break, in the midst of the changeover. If I had known the horse would be coming from second last, I mean, 9-5 would have been disgusting.
Right.
I thought the horse would be up there, and you're going 50-3 to the half. And it is what it is. Sometimes, maybe the horse missed the break or whatever the case may have been.
I didn't see the break either.
Yeah, you can't account for those things. If it was a concerted effort to take back, that's when I think rightfully having a gripe about, why would you do that? The horse was run really well, pushing faster paces than this. This was a dawdling pace. I mean, if we're being honest, your horse had to be significantly the best to run that horse down on the front, despite the fact that horse that was cutting out the fractions was sort of a middling price. I mean, those are the sort of things that I think from a player's standpoint, I think players complain too much about certain things.
For sure.
That is not one of them. That is not one of them. If all of a sudden, and again, I'm acknowledging maybe the horse missed the break. But if there was a concerted effort to take back, I go, why? What happened? And let us know next time, please.
Wouldn't that be nice? Hey, we're going to take back today.
Yeah, because otherwise I wouldn't have touched the horse with a 10-foot pole coming from last.
Let's see if we get this photo. I mean, it looks like it on the replay. I also wouldn't mind trying to keep eyes peeled and watch the watch the break and see if we can figure out what happened to your pick in that race for any information to glean for next time out as well. but yeah, it's a dead tight photo, but I think it'll probably end up being all right there. And then what's next in the contest? Are we waiting for the next? Is it we wait and we hit these two races? We hit Gulfstream, and it was the 10 Starship Abraham getting the job done. Star Shopping second with Quantum Theory coming in third. Lois Len, the winner at Woodbine with Henry's Gamble, the one in second, and Fredericia, excuse me, under Emma Jane Wilson, the number 2 runner in third, who sort of mugged Lady Maeve late for that show spot at Woodbine. So yeah, I think that's what it's going to be. I think we just got to wait around for these races, which is actually great because it gives us time to do everything we need to do and not really worry about it. Hopefully they won't be literally on at the same time again, and we'll have a chance to talk about them each individually, which would be good. But this, I think, is a good time to get to some comments here. Here's Tom commenting on the parent interruption. Behold your future, Matt. Michael Bryant pointing out how well Franco has been doing. That's also indubitably true. Let's see. We have the artist calling himself Kimbo Slice. Good to see you both back. Some weekend of racing coming up in the U.S., UK, and France. Don't forget Japan. We'll get to that in a minute. Some more congrats for you, Matt, from our man over there. A vote for more races also from Michael. We appreciate that. John Gasper, who I shouted out, playing along, will be back for a few weekends in August, potentially hungover now that the Brentwood shows are going to be on a Sunday. That's okay. They've changed over the bar there a little bit, but they still have it's more of a wine bar focus, but they do have booze, and we will be having good Bloody Marys. I guarantee you that. So we'll have the cure for what ails you in that spot. This is an interesting request that I think I have to pull up the PP to make this work, but I see no reason why it can't. Can you show how you mark up a PP for a horse that has run in Europe, still trying to figure out how to read them best? So this is a bit of a trick question, but I will pull something up. Should I pull up maybe one of those, maybe that foreign horse that's running at Belmont tomorrow for Clement, that first-time starter? Matt and I went over the Belmont Saturday pick 6 on the regular late week show. So let me pull that up for you, and we'll just talk through the form. But the reason I say it's a trick question is because I don't rely on only the data you're going to see in the form for those horses. Now, you can get some clues, and I'm really curious how Matt, the intended answerer of the question, responds to this. But for me, those are, I look at them, but they're more of a starting point than anything else, because I'm going to be looking at, I got to put in a plug for my team over at theraces.com, who have excellent past performances with deeper notes on form, and they'll have the time form ratings in there too. But the time form website itself is also excellent. You can access videos. You could do all kinds of stuff using those other resources that I have a feeling, Matt, you too are looking at some of those other sources.
Yeah. So I guess let's start with the first thing. When you talk about marking up past performances, to me, there's really not a ton to mark up per se with a European or a foreign running line. I'm marking up things in the sort of US style, where we've got different calls, we've got pace figures, we've got things like that. I'll then go in and type in notes specifically in Formulator. That's the product that I use for the most part to take notes. Automatically saves them in there, and when you print your PPs, they're already uploaded for you. But with a European, so like let's look at Romanosa here, first time starter on Saturday for Christophe Clement. I'm going to go through and have to make my own little note that I know won't save necessarily in here. Although I will say in Formulator, they have a function for horse notes, and you can go through. So like Breeders' Cup time is the perfect example. I'll go through, and all those races that you watch tape for over in Europe, I'll just go through and manually do what these running lines would suggest. So you see the, I'm trying to think of the best way if we can pull it back up.
Yeah, I was trying to show how to do the notes, and now I've backed out of everything.
That's
I was too clever by half. I'll be back though in a second.
Yeah, so if you go right in here, I believe, and this isn't the it's actually going to end up being a little bit different in this style, but you can go up into that top corner in the right-hand side if you really wanted to add notes. I don't personally do it there, but if you in Formulator, there are 3 tabs when you go into the chart view, and you can go into the horse notes. But I'll go through and manually date. So let's say it's going to be this most recent run from Fontainebleau. I'll date 11, 18, 21. I'll write out my trip note that I normally would, same exact style. Obviously, your configurations in a lot of the European races are different than our 2-turn, ovals here in the United States. So your shorthand's got to change a little bit, but I'm going to do effectively the exact same thing. And then now I use a program on my iPad that I can go through and add in little pen notes here and there. I'll write in. So you see that the runner-up in that most recent run of the race on November 18th came back and won next out. I'll make a notation of what that field was like. Was it a group stake? Was it, basically an allowance type of field? What kind of horses was that one running against? And how does that compare to Romanosa's field that she's going to be facing here on Saturday for the first time? So I don't know that this is the best way to explain it necessarily of what I would do, but in my opinion, there's far less to necessarily air quote markup for an international type of running line than there would be for, I'm making it up, next Saturday's Belmont Stakes, where I can go through and circle slow pace here, fast pace, rich strike, rallied up the wood, perfect ride, X, Y, and Z. With this, it's much more, has that form overseas look. Does she stack up? Is she one that, let's say she's been around one bend. That most recent run came out of a left-handed race. So there could be some signal there because she's going to be going left-handed here. How does she handle the bend? Is she the kind of horse that's really being pushed along and kind of spinning her wheels? Or is that where she's making up her ground? Is she not one of those? And I Pete, you would know better. I'm not familiar with the racetrack right there. I don't know if it's a total flat, if there's undulation or whatever it may be. But those are the sort of things that I'm looking for more with the European coming here than necessarily what, are sort of known commodities in the U.S.
You hit on a lot of things. I mean, form is so important over there. So when you go through and you look at who they ran against, which again, you've got a couple of resources, and I'll mention at theraces.com again in that regard. You'll probably start, once you do this a lot, you'll start to recognize the names too, especially of the better class horses. And certain tracks will just keep coming up as the ones. I mean, Romanosa has sort of an interesting combination of form at some tracks that are, not ones that I'm even hardly familiar with, as well as ones that everybody who follows international racing is familiar with. Obviously, you love to see form. You love to see the Paris form, the from the Paris tracks like Longchamp, or the big summer track like Deauville. Horses running there. I mean, that's top-notch stuff for sure. I think you hit on a really interesting point that's super simple and worth just underlining again. This designation here, looking for horses that have had left-handed success. I mean, you're smart to take it to the next level and then actually go and try to watch the tape. You can also find a lot of stakes racing on YouTube. The French form can be harder to find. There are websites where you can pull that up to. Equidia is one, EQUIDIA, which is worth checking out if you're interested in imports like we are. But just seeing horses, I feel like at the Breeders' Cup, even we've had some high-profile horses that you can make a case to bet against because they're used to running only on straightaways or straightaways and a little right-handed. Whereas when you see them running left-handed, and then over time you'll start to notice tracks that really seem like particularly good pointers for the USA. Leopardstown, York, Chester. Love Chester form around the USA because that's got bends tighter than what we have. You're basically on a turn the whole time there. If you can get around Chester, you're not going to have any problem getting around the turns at a USA racetrack. Anyway, this is a good topic for another video or another, a larger discussion at some point, maybe going over how to use some of those other sites in conjunction with daily racing form. And then DRF, like you said, lets you make those notes. Anyway, that was
Pete,
fairly
quick,
long-winded.
Do you remember, I'll button up on this about the configurations and looking at how horses go left-handed versus straight versus right-handed. Who was the horse Danny Tudhope rode a few years ago? It wasn't. It was a horse that came over here from Europe, ran well in the Woodbine Mile. I think ran well at Keeneland as well. May have won the Woodbine Mile. The horse was sort of middle of the pack type over in Europe, but all the left-handed races were exceptional versus the right in the straights, and it transferred over here. And I can't remember for the life of me. Just when you need to remember something, you can't remember.
Desert Encounter?
No, it was even farther back. A miler. So I have to find this now. It's going to make for terrible listening and viewing, but I have to find it.
I'll go on to other topics because I can shout out.
Yeah.
Here's one I can talk about. Wayne Harrison wants to know thoughts on Wesley Ward's Love Reigns, who presumably will be headed to the Queen Mary at Royal Ascot, which I believe, don't quote me on this, but I believe is also a win in your in race for the Breeders' Cup, and we'll definitely get we'll definitely get some more information on that. I was impressed with the Love Reigns run, and yeah, definitely. I'm not prepared to like really try to weigh up, price up these Ascot babies yet, but I will say that we'll be doing a whole show next week on the topic as part of our Baby Talk series, and we're gonna have a lot of information on all that stuff. But I mean, heck, this is a Ward at this point needs no introduction. And I mean, I will say they generally run to their figures. The ones you're a little worried might be too slow have typically not performed anywhere near as well as the ones with figures. And it's, that seems so obvious, but when doing something so different, the figures may or may not translate. They typically do. I like it. Producer Craig, Johnny on the spot, wanting to do a leaderboard update while Matt searches. Ernest Hay still in first, 87 after these favorites. We're not going to see too many differences. Shea Carroll, Kevin Walsh, Patrick Lewis, Anthony Miraz, Greg Kingma ×2, Pete Dressens, Kevin Lux, David Burke. As we scroll down, Tanya Taylor, who I had the pleasure of meeting out at Oaklawn Park one day, and I've seen at contests around the country. Very friendly with the 10 Strike Racing crew is Tanya. Andrew Wright still there. Jonathan Cummings, Stephen Dudenoff, Jason Avila from World Horse Player Tour. Don't start celebrating until you know your horse got to the wire first, Jason. Julie Leboyko, Mike Somich, good to see him on here. He's done some work with us over on the network and always fun to listen to. Christopher Olson's Three-Headed Monster is still there. Dave Nichols, who I've had the pleasure of hanging out with many times, does a lot of volunteer work for the Thoroughbred Retirement Foundation. He's moving up. Rocky Hardy, Duncan Courtney, Turner West, James Millar, and Paul Weiser. So we've got a lot of familiar names in the contest world. Scrolling down, Albion Benton, good to see his name up there. AJ Benton has had some good NHC runs and actually has a comment for us I'm going to get to. Last year's tour winner, good to see David Browning's name on the leaderboard. One name I'm not seeing on the leaderboard so far is the In the Money Plus editor, Tyler Wisman, who has pledged, he was feeling froggy, and he has pledged that he is going to donate $1 for every entry that finishes ahead of him on today's leaderboard. So right now, as we scroll through the first two pages, it looks like Tyler may be coming out of pocket, but he's a sharp guy. He may well rally here. Let's see.
It's at least a C note right now.
Yeah. Oh, look at that!
Oh my goodness!
Yeah, he is in a tie for last. He has $0. Tyler, get going, man. You're gonna have to, but he doesn't mind. He doesn't mind supporting a good cause. So anyway, that's pretty funny.
I don't know if I can share my screen.
I don't think you can without. Are you seeing a way to do it? Is there something there that says share screen? I have like admin on this. If you can send something to Craig, he can share.
How about that?
Oh my God, he did it. Monday Elise. Now, again, you can find this in Daily Racing Form's Formulator product. You go through the charts, you find the horses, you can click on them, pull up their lifetime PPs. Monday Elise, if you go through, and I don't know if it's big enough, I can try to make it a little bit larger. Yeah, if you can make it a little bigger. If you just enlarge on your screen, if you just do the old Command Plus thing.
There we go. Okay. So this is early on in his career. right? You can see some of these races don't really mean a great deal this early on. I'm not too worried about this. When we get up into some of these better races, right? These races here, he's on the straight. He finishes a good second. Now on the straight, third, straight 14th, nowhere. Left-handed, first by 10. Left-handed, first by a neck. Left-handed, he comes to Woodbine. He wins the Woodbine Mile. That was with Feargal Lynch. Then he came back in the Breeders' Cup Mile and finished second with Danny Tudhope. They go over to Hong Kong. Right-handed, no good. Comes back first start of the season next year. Right-handed, no good. Straight, no good. Left-handed, second. Comes back to the States. Arlington Million wins left-handed. Shadwell Turf Mile, only beaten by a length and a half.
Runs huge.
Right. Breeders' Cup, no dice. And then at this point in his career, he's getting a little long in the tooth here. I believe he was 7 years old at this point. But he did have at least one more good run in a group stake at York going left-handed again. So
what a perfect example.
He feels like the case in point that it doesn't happen often, that it's so, cut and dry. But there are certain horses that really appreciate. We talk about a horse for courses, the ones that can go down the hill at Santa Anita. Some horses can't do that. And the ones that can, you want to give them a little extra credit. That would be my suggestion when you see some of these Europeans come over, especially for the first time. Just see, has there been any sort of a difference in their left-handed form versus their straight or right-handed form? Because there may be some signal there.
Time flies, and we're running out of it on this show, which is amazing and a great. And by the way, that was a fabulous example that we need to remember for a handicapping video or book at some point. That was brilliant and absolutely worth waiting for. Let's bring in our guest, Craig, first. Here's how we're going to do this. We're going to bring in our guest. We're going to get that rocking and rolling so we can preview this. The Yasuda Kinen Win and You're In Breeders' Cup action. From Saturday night, Sunday morning in Japan. And then I want to look back at last weekend's WAYI race. Then we'll talk about these two races. We'll run these two races. We will do the leaderboard one more time. We'll get the heck out of here. So without further ado, producer Craig, if you can send us, as Warner Wolf would have said back in the day, let's go to the videotape. Next up in the show, very happy to bring in an expert when it comes to all things international racing, particularly the JRA. She's a frequent guest on the shows. She's Candice Hare. Candice, how are things?
Doing well. Another big week of Japanese racing. We've been spoiled lately.
It's true. And I love the crossover now where we're getting to talk about a race that's not just a big deal JRA race with the implications in world racing, but specifically a win and you're in race for the Breeders' Cup. The Yasuda Kinen is a win and you're in for the Breeders' Cup Mile, happening late Saturday night, early Sunday morning in North America, on the East Coast of North America in particular, those timings I just gave. But I want to start from zero and give people an idea. How important is this race in Japan?
It's an important race, but I think in recent years, it's become an important race for horses who do wind up traveling. So I think it's a really smart race to have included in that Breeders' Cup Win and You're In series. You look to past winners like Just Away, Lord Kanaloa, Morris, many horses who we've seen not only travel, but have success abroad. So obviously we're hoping to see maybe a couple of these horses wind up here in America.
Well, that's the idea, and part of the reason why it's so exciting with this Win and You're In program, and especially looking to Japan after the success they had last year. I mean, this is kind of a master of the obvious statement, but I think it's right. You would have to think that the success that the Japanese had at the Breeders' Cup last year is going to lead to more owners and trainers wanting to make challenges specifically at the Breeders' Cup.
I would think so. And I think that there's so much more room to be had there. Obviously, there's a lot of interest from the Japanese in American racing in general. We see that in the Triple Crown series as well. And while they've had success, there are so many races yet left that they can win. So a little bit of everything. But usually in any major international meeting, winning breeds more horses from that country coming.
Yeah, it makes sense. And that's a great point about the connection between the two businesses when you look at the Japanese breeding program and how that's been built and continues to be built. Let's talk Turkey. Let's get into the specifics of this year's running. We're several days out here still, so I'm not necessarily going to hold your feet to the fire for a selection. But where is your eye drawn when you look over the prospective runners for this year's field?
Mile races in Japan are always fun because you get that mix of routers, or what we think of as a router in America, and sprinters. So I always treat these mile races kind of like we treat the Breeders' Cup Filly and Mare Sprint. You get that kind of mix of both types of horses. My eye early on is going to a horse named Fine Rouge, who's been very, very consistent in her career thus far. Only once has she not finished in the top 3, but she's yet to kind of crack the code here at the Group 1 level. I think this could be her race. Should set up well for her from the horses I see in here pace-wise. And this is a race where it's males against the female horses. And we've seen mares recently in this race have a ton of success. So Fine Rouge, the one my eye's going to.
What kind of price are we expecting?
I'd be hoping for maybe about six to 8.
A square price, to say the least. And looking at the body of this field, including the tip, which horses do you think might be most likely to make a raid to our shores here in North America if they're successful?
I think inherently your eye usually goes to horses who have already traveled. So you look to a horse like Schnellmeister, who's, I would say, likely to be your favorite. He was second in this race last year behind Gran Allegria. We saw him over in Dubai. He certainly did not perform up to expectations there, but I wouldn't be surprised if they gave him another crack at it. The other one could be Songline if she showed up. Obviously, we saw her win over in Saudi Arabia. She's a horse who maybe a soft, mile or a little bit further would be perfect for her. And usually we find those conditions in America. I think she's the type of horse who's shown herself to be advantaged by a flat track. And those are a little bit harder to come by in Japan. So Songline of these is probably the most likely, I would say, to turn up.
Great stuff. We appreciate your insights on this. We'll get more from you and the rest of the team covering the JRA races over at inthemoneypodcast.com on Saturday. There will be past performances. There will be selections. There will be further analysis. And Candice, we will bother you again very soon to come on these airwaves to chat about the JRA and everything related to international racing. Really appreciate your time today.
Thank you, Pete.
Always great fun to talk to Candice, and better late than never. The Department of Better Late Than Never. Let's get the spear going. Yeah.
Tremendous.
If we had more time, I'd tell the people out there, hey, let us know what you're drinking during Horseplayer Happy Hour. But honestly, we probably don't have time to get to it because we've got a lot more ground to cover. Let's do 2 quick minutes. We're going to do this a lot on these shows where we do little 2-minute bits. A lot of times they're going to be looking forward, little 2-minute race previews. Let's do a 2-minute race review, Matt, of the Win and You're In race from last weekend at Santa Anita. It was the Shoemaker Mile, and it was won in fine style by Count Again, who ran down Smooth Like Straight very impressively in the lane. What did you make of this performance?
Yeah, striking performance from a horse that's always been good. He's always hinted at ability. His big turn of foot has always been his calling card. It's just a matter of, is he going to get up in time? Does he have the pace he needs to run at? Is his running style ideal for Southern California? I mean, there are all those things that you have to go through. He had the pace that he needed to run at in that run on Monday afternoon, and he earned a career best Beyer speed figure of 108 in that spot. I mean, that's a number that's going to make him a legitimate threat in a race like the Breeders' Cup Mile. Should they go there? No reason to think they won't. Smooth Like Straight, I think he ran his race. I mean, he earned a 103 Beyer. That's basically what he does at this point. I guess the only thing that I would throw out there, and it'll really come into focus as we get closer and closer to the Breeders' Cup. Keeneland has very, very quickly for me become I don't want to call it full-blown horse for course kind of angle, but boy, you need to have some success there or at a track like Kentucky Downs or the Europeans for whatever reason. I don't know. It's a bit of an interesting run. Count Again's run well enough at Keeneland in the past. He just finished 6th. I know that doesn't sound all that good in the Maker's Mark Mile, but he was only beaten a length and a quarter. I would be more concerned about that race as a whole. Just is it all that productive? But look, they're the 2 best out on the West Coast, I would think, at this point. Would you agree?
Oh, for sure. They stand out from a crowd. No doubt about it. I'm a big Smooth Like Straight fan, but it seems like Count Again might have just blown past him in the local standings.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to think otherwise. And again, the pace was on the Swift side, so I don't want to take that away from Smooth Like Straight. But it's not as though he was the one that was cutting out the fractions. He was sitting just off. And yeah, he went 45-3. But if you base it on the half-mile number, I mean, Count Again went 46-1. So it's not like he was walking out there, Yeah, he was right there and had so much left. And I was of the mind going in, I liked the idea that maybe there was a rabbit in there. I didn't think Dan Samo would be fast enough to
set the kind of fractions that he did, but I didn't mind it because my issue with some of the previous Smooth Like Straight form was that maybe he hadn't gone fast enough. So if my theory was right going in, I had nothing to complain about that. I'm not going to go in there and be upset about him getting the worst of the flow in that spot. It just looked like Count Again right now is better, and Smooth Like Straight's going to have to improve if he's going to get there. And we should talk about Gulfstream Park, huh?
Let's do it.
All right, good stuff. What did you come up with in this race? Oh, actually, Woodbine first, because they're actually loading.
Oh, now we're in full scramble mode. Now
I'm
let me
sorry.
get.
I'm sorry.
No, you're good. I went with the 7 in here. 10 penny nail. Blinkers off. I thought the return effort was a solid one. Got some class relief there. Jumps back up to the 25 level, which still isn't quite to the level this one was at before. I'm hopeful the turf isn't going to be any kind of an issue. You go to that run in the second lifetime start. I think a replica of that effort makes this one very tough in here. 3-1, a little on the light side. I was hoping for closer to the morning line of 9-2.
2 Smarty Illusion for me. Very simple case. Solid turf form, good late pace. See if Smarty Illusion can get it done over this more galloping configuration. That's a good, you want to have a good Euro conversation. We can talk about galloping tracks versus tight tracks sometime. That could be fun. And gallopers versus quickeners and all these fun little angles. We're going to have tons of coverage of Ask It. I mentioned that we'll be doing special stuff on the network. We'll surely be doing special stuff about those win and you're in races. And then on In the Money Plus, we have contracted the great Rob Dove, one of the top 10 pro punters in the UK today, to be providing his daily analysis as well. So we're going to have a ton of fun with that. All right, looks like they might be waiting at Gulfstream for this Woodbine race. Wouldn't that be amazing if we see this kind of cooperation? It kind of worked out that way the last race, and maybe it'll work out that way again. Maybe while they're in the early part of this race, no, we better.
Let's hit Gulfstream.
Yeah, I think we got to talk.
Just because I think they're getting close.
That's exactly right. And I've got some hopefully an interesting opinion in here. I like the number 7 Artificial Intel at what I think is going to be a big price. Yeah, 11-1. We'll call that a big price. Despite being on a big cutback, the pace map has this one on or near the lead, and I love that she has never synth sprinted. So in a way, you can say that she's unexposed. We don't know if she's good or not. At the price against this field, I'll take a shot with the 7. How about you?
I mean, I guess it's uninteresting. I went with the 6 in here. She's 3-1. I feel like a return to that run 2 starts back is good enough, or darn near good enough to get the job done. And granted, it's a wide open race. You can tell by the tote board. A 3-1 favorite's lukewarm at best. But I just think Sensational Grace, if she can be a little bit closer with Jaramillo aboard in here for Dave Fox, I think she's got a big chance.
All right, let's see what's going on. Back at Woodbine, I'm kind of all in on the turn, and maybe we're finding a little bit now, but in an awkward spot between and really being pumped on. Meanwhile, has the bird flown for Ara Go Wan? This horse caught my eye, and I eventually, on the surface switch, decided I wanted to wait and see one. Well, I may have waited a race too long because Ara Go Wan looks potentially gone, though Venenosa might have something to say about it, closing with alacrity. But no, the longtime leader hangs on. Big run from the 4 there at a price that might get some people up into the, I don't think we ever explained that the contest is the top 10% of players who advance into the qualifier on Saturday. And then it will be the top 10 overall in the contest who get the tour points as we get ready to break at Gulfstream. We'll see if this long shot of mine has anything there, and how Matt's favorite makes out as well, as they're just getting ready to load there. And then, maybe we can hit, while we wait for these races to go official, we can hit a couple more comments, and then boom, we'll do the leaderboard and we'll be out of here. And a very nice break for the deuce at Gulfstream on this synthetic. Did it start to rain there? We got some weather in the area?
I don't know. I mean, it's hard to tell. It's a little on the grainy side. A little on the grainy side today.
Yeah.
Now, look, I don't know. I think Jaramillo's horse is a bit of a runoff right now. But that when you start to get those sort of moves up, that usually makes me think that the horse is going to run. Although who's following just behind the 8 horse in the Gray Silks? The 4 is moving well. There's a lot going on right now.
Yeah, this could go any number of ways. My 9 maybe tries to make a move down the center of the track. Probably too far out of it. Let's see if your runner Your runner just needs to quicken and should be all right.
He's flattened out, I think. Not
Yeah, it's
leads either.
hanging on the wrong lead, and I think the 2 is Gonzo. Maybe the 8 comes down the center for second. Maybe it doesn't quite get there, and the 10 hangs. 2-10-4.
2-10-4. Okay.
So all right, we'll see. We'll see what impact.
Not a great gambling day here. Yeah. I would have been goose egg in the contest.
I had some favorites come in. I don't think I would have had enough to. I don't think I had a good run of form on the show. I think I was 0 for. I would have been 0 for early. I don't think I'd have much. Maybe I could sneak into the bottom of the 10%. You know, when you can get all the way to 17th, there's some chance of it. So we strung together some halfway decent stuff. I am annoyed. I got to go back and look at Arago Juan, the winner at Woodbine, who I really did look at long and hard, and I can't remember why I decided not to even mention. Rapid fire questions while we wait for the leaderboard. Sure. Can Flightline get the classic distance? Would Keeneland be an easier place to stay? Breeding says he could, but he's that quick. You have to question it. Small bet at 8-1 as no quicker horse on dirt for Wayne. I mean, I get it. The horse is ridiculously fast, but I think it's a lot to ask that horse to go 10. I think, but 8-1. I wouldn't want any shorter. I'll put it that way. What do you think about his ability to potentially go 10 furlongs?
I mean, I actually think he's a horse that wants to go longer. He's never had the opportunity to. My concern wouldn't necessarily right now anyway be the distance. It would be, I mean, how many times is he going to run? I don't know that. And certainly at that price, there's no chance that I'd touch him at that number. I don't think there would be a number that I would touch him at this point, just because he's run, 3 times, I think. And yes, knock wood, we get to see him next Saturday. It's hard for me to get stuck into a horse at any kind of a price that's run 4 times. Is he a 4-year-old or a 5-year-old? I mean, either way, even if he's 4, he'll have run his 4th race on Saturday afternoon. I mean, it's hard for me to really get juiced up about a horse like that he's brilliant. There's no denying that whatsoever. It's just, boy, I don't know that he's going to be in one piece by the time we get to November. He may run a hole in the wind on Saturday and then be laid up for a few months. And we've seen some horses that are like that, where they're almost too fast for their own good. And I mean, look, again, he's fantastic. He's really, really strong. I don't question the distance at this point. I'm more concerned about his ability to stay on the racetrack, honestly.
He is by Tappet. I mean, he should be able to go the distance. I mean, that is an absolutely fair point. He is 4, so he's still progressive, and he's run about some of the fastest figures you're ever going to see. So yeah, we'll see how that goes. A couple other comments while we wait. Tom shouting out Candice, the JRA Idaho News guru. Jackrabbit Slim got to that before you did, Matt, with Mon Dialiste. Good stuff. Michael suggests a Saturday morning Euros Horseplayer Happy Hour. Man, it's crazy and it's probably impractical, but my goodness, wouldn't it be a lot of fun to do something like that, especially on a day when we have a lot of Saturday morning win and you're in action. It's not completely crazy, Michael. Let me think about that one.
I was texting with our friend Nick Luck while the show is going on right now, and he would be the one. He is far more knowledgeable than I in that regard, and I'll volunteer Nick. How's that? How's that for being a friend? Volunteering someone unbeknownst to they don't know what's going on. I'll volunteer Nick to help.
He'll have a lot else going on Saturday morning. He might pop in for 5. He's crazy enough to be on a break from his other broadcast and pop in to say hi to us. I could absolutely see that. Hearing rumors that the business manager of In the Money Media, Drew Coatney, may have gone runner in those 2 nightcaps, which might put him in that top 10%. That'll be interesting to see. One more theme of the show. One more congrats for you, Matt. And this is from Brian Shields, who had a black-eyed Susan filly himself. Good day to be born. Good day to be born.
Yeah, look at that. We're only separated by a couple of weeks. 2 weeks on the nose.
Oh, excellent stuff. All right, we're just waiting for this to become official. What do you got going on this weekend? Where can we find your act?
So I will have, what's today? Thursday? I don't even know the days anymore.
It is
Friday.
Thursday.
Yeah, I'll have a couple more hockey pieces up over on NBCSportsEdge.com. We're in the midst of the conference final for both sides. We'll find out how that whole thing shakes down. I'll have a stakes preview over on the website, taking a look at a couple of races this upcoming weekend. The next week, I will be headed to Stamford. I'll be in studio, not at Belmont Park, for the Belmont Stakes next Saturday. I think we're only on for 2 hours. So we'll have the Belmont and whatever the race leading in. Hopefully we get 3 races out of it. But next week will be a big focus on that. And I mean, I'm curious. I don't want to, get way ahead of ourselves, but the field, I initially looked at the Belmont and said, well, okay, we don't really truly have a superstar. But at the same time, it's a kind of a compelling race because, as much as I like Mo Donegal, I mean, he's been our horse. He was on his first 3 races of his career on this show.
Yeah, he is totally the Triple H horse. That's exactly
he's our
right.
horse. So we both looked at him and said, he could be a good long distance type next year. Sure enough, here we are. As good as I think he is, I don't think he's necessarily a superstar. And Rich
the prices I'm seeing internationally, as much as I love him, I'm like, well,
is he like 2 to 1?
Yeah, I saw some 9 to 4. It's short.
Yeah, that's very short for a horse that he's good, but he's not overly fast on paper. I'm probably the leader of the clubhouse saying he should have been 300 to 1 in the Kentucky Derby, but it sure seems like Rich Strike is feeling himself. I don't know if it's going to translate to Saturday, but based on that workout the other day at Churchill, I know it was in the afternoon. He certainly looks good. I don't know that I want him at 9 to 2.
Yeah, I can't. I mean, I just can't even with him. But you're right. I mean, you make good points. It's certainly the idea that he'd win the Belmont is certainly not the ridiculous notion I would have said that it was a minute after the Derby. And let me say this to Rich Strike's credit. I think this is going to be much more, maybe I'm wrong, but I think it's going to capture a bit more national/social media type attention in the general sporting public than your average Belmont that doesn't have, a Triple Crown or like a big showdown. Because I think people were really captivated by that story, by the Frogger video that your colleagues managed to capture of him. This horse has, he's hit a nerve with people. And, we'll see how much Drake bets on him this time. Okay.
Before we do this, the last thing I'll ask you, and it'll be very quick. Please. I know we still have the rest of the summer. If he wins the Belmont, does he win 3-year-old and Horse of the Year?
He's almost locked in for 3-year-old with 2 classics.
Right?
Horse of the Year.
It sounds bananas.
I know. But it's
June.
For 3-year-old, though, I mean, he's got a chance to win Horse of the Year now if everything goes
What other horse would win the Derby and the Belmont and not be the Horse of the Year?
It's going to have to take a Whitney Breeders' Cup. But even that, it'd have to be more than that.
Yeah.
I think that the classics kind of count as 2. Definitely the Derby counts as 2. But the Breeders' Cup Classic kind of counts as 2. So you can it'll be fascinating. I mean,
which is wild. The horse was in for 30 last fall.
I know. I want him to run well for racing, but it will not be good for my pocketbook. I can pretty much guarantee you that. But who knows? Maybe I'll have something so clever underneath that I have him in a combo. This horse is like that I've tried to beat with basically, every fiber, but you throw in one pick 5 where you're like, California Chrome probably is the fastest horse. I'm not going to be an idiot and leave him out of it. You know what I mean? Like when you have strong opinions elsewhere, you could put in horses that you don't really like. So maybe it'll dovetail where it can all go according to plan. But no, I'll almost definitely be betting against him. Let's go over this. We've got 17 names to say, Craig, starting with our winner on the day, Kevin Walsh. He has won a spot in our finals. Or playoffs, I should say, as has Ernest Hay Jr. They're the top 2. They make up the exacta. Fifth, let's now do the 7 more that will go on to play that have earned tour points. Patrick Lewis, Jonathan Cummings, Pete Dressens, Stephen Dudnoff, Jason Avila, Darren Jones, and Greg Kingma times 2. So he will get, it works basically, you get 10 points for the 1 and 1 point for the 10, and do the math in between. So like 3 points for Greg Kingma already on the leaderboard there for the tour, which is great. And then we have some more winners as well who will go on to compete on Saturday. Shea Carroll, David Browning, last year's winner, Andrew Wright, who we talked about all day, Matthew Abbott, Christopher Olson, as predicted, Drew Coatney sneaks in there. And hey, how about this? Bob Weir, not from the Grateful Dead, Bob Weir, but Bob Weir, who is married to Kim Weir, who's been a frequent guest on these airwaves. Great to see him in there. And then our very own bubble man, James Millar, finishing 18th. I don't know. Was there breakage? Scroll back up to the top.
Yeah,
there,
I think
Craig,
it was
for a
just
second.
17 flat.
It was just 17 flat.
Oh, no, I lied.
Top 3 non-winners get $20 breakage refunds. So we'll read them as well, including James Miller. So he is a winner. I mean, it's still bubble, but also AJ Benton and Tom Espinoza. So like three friends of the show at least get their 20 back to go and play another day. Our man Michael Domable, a little bit unlucky. Some good scores today. The players they showed up and they did a great job. Okay, I've got a little girl in a Taekwondo uniform. I forget what they're called. Producer Craig knows. It's Dubuck or something like that. And she's going to be Dobuck. It's Dobuck. Dobuck, says the black belt. We got to get him back. We got to get you back up to the. Perrin wants you to be like 9th level or something. She has a whole plan for you, Craig. She was inspired by your conversation, and I showed her the videos when you were like 2 feet taller than the other kids sparring. It was fantastic.
It's like Kramer.
It really was. Except it's real life. But anyway, she's going to be super mad at me if I'm late, as you could probably get from when she came down here before. So I got to go. But this was so much fun. If I had my way, I'd stay here and we could bet some late night and keep hanging out. Good news is we get to do it again next week and every week through the Breeders' Cup here on Horseplayer Happy Hour. Let's thank our friends at the Breeders' Cup, Justin McDonald, Haley Amos, the team at horseplayers.com, especially Eric Wing was extra helpful to us. Our charities that we barely talked about, and we should try to hustle some more donations for them as the season goes along. Thoroughbred Aftercare Alliance, we do that important work of accrediting all the aftercare organizations, and of course, the aforementioned Thoroughbred Retirement Foundation. I had an interview. I don't know if you saw this, Matt, but I did an interview with a graduate of the program who really credited the Second Chances program for the TRF of turning his life around when he was in prison. And he's since gone on to have a productive career with horses, and just a really interesting cat who had a chance to sit down with early week. I would recommend, if you're interested at all in this type of stuff, check that out. Just speaks to the important work that they do. We'll thank you, Matt Bernier. We will thank Candice Hare for stopping by and talking JRA. This is going to be the model. We're really going to be getting into these win you're in races before and after. Hopefully that's going to provide some cool context as we go through the season and follow the excitement of the Breeders' Cup and the Breeders' Cup Betting Challenge. This show has been a production of the Breeders' Cup and In the Money Media. On our side, our business manager is Drew Coatney. Our chief creative officer is Jonathan Kinchin. We'll get him on here at some point as well. I'm Peter Thomas Fornatale. May you win all your photos.